So this is a little different from what we normally do when we do lectures. If you saw us talk and we're not on a panel, usually we have a bunch of slides and we kind of just talk as fast as possible for an hour and we're going to go through our thing. This is a much more ad hoc, loose panel in that we're going to talk about Atari games and we're going to play them and analyze like the game design decisions that were made in them and why they might be useful for modern game design, why they might be bad for game design, why they might be interesting.
And you're going to watch us. Way.
Yeah. It's also kind of personal because one of the games, Outlaw, that Pretzel Cowboy game we were playing a little while ago, has anyone played Pretzel Cowboy or Outlaw on the Atari?
All right, a few people.
It's one of the few Atari games that holds up today. Like, I legit like that game, and I pride myself in being shockingly good at it.
You practice too much.
Yeah, and I've played
Warlords is all right.
The
It's
only
not
reason,
Pretzel
so
Cowboy.
We're going to talk about a bunch of different Atari games. Outlaw's like our exemplary one, but for full disclosure, we can't talk about the paddle games because there aren't good paddle interfaces that act like the old Atari to properly demonstrate those games. Otherwise, I'm
Like
talking
his
about
number one game is Kaboom, but we can't play Kaboom because how are we going to play Kaboom on a laptop?
Yep.
Right?
So I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
We're the hosts of Geek Nights. We do a radio show and podcast, and we do lectures. There's video of this panel from PAX South. Will be on YouTube, hopefully in like a few weeks, once I get back from London.
So you can leave here and go to the arcade, right? And watch that video and don't need to be here.
I only say this because if you enjoy this at all, there's like 40 of our 200 or so lectures and panels on YouTube, 1,000 episodes of our podcast we've been doing for a decade, and if you hate us, you can take this flyer right over to the MAGFest staff and tell them to never let us come back into this building.
Please do that.
I think Scott's tired. We're hungry. We haven't had dinner yet.
I'm tired and hungry.
But why?
And I lost at Outlaw.
Why Atari games? Why are we talking about Atari? We're not going to talk about the programming side of making an Atari game, though that is a fascinating topic.
And all that stuff is well documented online by people who know a lot more about it than us. So like if we were going to talk about it, what would have happened? We would have researched it online and summarized and reiterated to you what we learned from Google and Wikipedia. You can do that yourself and save yourself a bunch of time.
But from a game design perspective, independent of the limitations that made Atari games the way they were, game designers still made game designer decisions. And many of you are probably in this panel because you're aspiring game designers. How many of you want to make games? And that's part of the reason you're here.
All right, good luck. You're all going to fail.
So if you can't design, not code, not deal with any of that nonsense, if you couldn't design a game about as complex as an Atari 2600 game, there is no way you're going to design a big boy game. There is no way that's going to happen. So little tiny toy games like this are the best way to become a very good game designer in a hurry. It's the same is true for board games. Until you can design a tiny little 2-player or 3-player card game, you're never going to design Eclipse 3.0.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that like the number one like game design thing that people would do is try to like mod D&D, which is like this giant system, right? And it's like that's the first thing they tried, and it's like, dude, you can't even make like a little game for kids, roll your dice, move your mice, and you're already moving up to like top tier RPG. Good luck.
So Atari games are also interesting because, and I'm going to start an Atari game to be able to discuss this. We're going to play some of these live, but because they're limited, they are very simple, and
It's too loud.
the techniques that had to be used.
It's too loud.
Oh,
It's killing me.
to make these games work sort of informed or at least caused good game design decisions to happen, even if that wasn't the intent. Kind of like, if any of you are anime fans, there's a famous anime called Evangelion, there's another one called Escaflowne, there's another one called Shoujo Kakame Utena. All three of these shows were supposed to be 39 or 52 episodes. There wasn't money for that. So Evangelion cut the show in half. They cut out a whole bunch of the show, compressed it in 26 episodes. Escaflowne cut out all the filler and told the same story at a breakneck pace. Utena did very interesting artistic things to stretch that budget out and still tell the whole story. All three of those shows are very well known for how well executed they were and how interesting they put together the composition. But a lot of those interesting things they did were not necessarily pure artistic decisions. They were made because of the limitations they were put under. So as a creative person, if you put extreme limitations on yourself, you're forced to be more creative. And you'll find that you'll actually end up making probably better games, better movies, better comics.
And it's not just true in,
All right, let's turn that off.
That's real. I don't know why you turned that on. That's just the most annoying music in the universe. It's true in all forms of art, pretty much, right? You know, there's some painter out there, and if they had $1 zillion, they'd buy like the fanciest canvases and all different kinds of paints, right? But that painter who's forced to like just use a few colors, right, and decides they're gonna get it done anyway, usually pulls off some kind of miracle, right? That limitation, being forced to get the most out of a little bit, right, means you do something really amazing, right? If you have all this stuff, it's like, well, you don't have to get the most out of it. It's already amazing, right, with your fancy equipments.
And when we go to conferences, like more professional conferences, like game design, game jams, game conferences, PAX Devs, those kinds of things, very often there'll be exercises where you'll be given a very small set of materials and told to make a board game in 20 minutes. Things like that. And you learn more from that than making a big game. But we're going to jump right into it. We're going to start with probably our heaviest hitter. This is Outlaw.
This might be the best Atari game.
So Outlaw is a pretty famous Atari game. It's an adaptation of an arcade game that was actually a light gun game.
Right. There were a bunch of different games called Outlaw, and this is the only one that really looks like this.
So the reason it looks like this is because the designer of this game was told by Atari, make Outlaw the arcade game on the Atari 2600.
So he's like, all right, and then he tries it, and of course, he can't do that.
It's impossible. There's no way to make the game good.
Yeah, you would need at least an NES or probably a lot more, right?
So he made a game with the same theme of pretzels with cowboy hats fighting with each other, but he made it using the limitations of the Atari, but also using the strengths of the Atari. So we're not going to get into why it's coded the way it is, but we're talking about game design. Pick one that has more contrast here.
Oh, good. Okay.
There are not that many pixels on this screen. You can have a discussion about why each pixel is where it is.
Right, now think about, like, what's the most modern version of this game? Like Quake one-on-one deathmatch, maybe? Or, like, I don't know, like, there's not too much going on. That's just maybe Tron, Ricochet, something like that.
Yeah, this is simple from so many perspectives. One, there's so little screen real estate and so little processing power that you can really zoom in on these details. You can understand the whole game in your head.
There's also limitations like the controls. I got an Xbox controller, but the Atari didn't have that. The Atari had a really crappy stick and one button, and that was it, right? So you have to make this game work with one button and an awful stick.
So another interesting thing when you're looking at this kind of design is that we're talking about ortho games here. So we're not really going to talk about ET as much as we like to make fun of it as an Atari game, even though we have a lecture on YouTube where we talk about how ET is actually not that bad of a game. In fact,
well, it's just not as bad as they say it is. It's still bad.
By the Atari standard, it's like top 20 Atari games.
It's still not great.
It's got issues.
Yeah.
But ortho games are competitive games. And this is interesting because this is a two-player ortho game, and it is also a symmetric game. Both of us have the exact same capabilities. It's a very interesting space for designing a game because it's very pure competition. That's the only kind of game we're going to talk about today. Because as soon as we expand into story games and IU games and all that other nonsense, it gets real hard to, fit this into.
There also, surprisingly, aren't that many one-on-one direct combat games on Atari, other than like Outlaw, Combat, and some sports games, and. That's pretty much it, right? I mean, you can play like Breakout two-player, but that's just switch back and forth, right? It's not actually two-player of any real sense.
So this is Outlaw. Let me get the sound up a little bit. Hear that sound effect.
So that's the sound of cowboys walking. It actually sounds pretty good for cowboys walking.
Yeah.
Right?
So I can move up, down, left, right. And look, I've got pixel-perfect precision. I can move pixel by pixel because there's only like 40 of them. There's a little space. There's a cactus here. Shoot it.
Now notice, when I shoot, I hold the button down, and the cowboy doesn't shoot yet. I can press up and down. And when I let go...
right in the butt.
Right in the butt.
So let's think about this purely from a game design perspective. So look what's going on here. We're going to play this game a little bit and try to think about how this very simple game, like how the rules are affecting the way we interact and play.
Right. Well, the invincible cactus, right, gives you a pretty good hiding spot, right?
Yep.
So you can just sort of wait out your opponent and see who's the first who's going to go for it, right?
Yeah, that's already a flaw. I can
Right.
just wait here forever. So I'm losing, so I can just say, you know what? I'm just going to wait until you give up, because if you walk away, I win.
Right. Now, a very good aspect here is that you lose when the other person gets to 10, just like Pong. So it's like, all right, well, I'm only at 1 now, so I can take some risks, right? When I'm only have 1 death so far, or 1 hit. You have the 1 death.
So, in terms of the play, one thing you can see, at least in this very simple example, is that because you hold the button to like aim your shot, and then you let go of the hand. How do you do that? causes a sort of nice give and take. This game is more like fencing than like a gunfight because you telegraph your move and then you execute
And
it.
once you press the button, you can't move until you let go. So it's like while you're in this position, you're at risk of being hit for at least that amount of time. See, while the bullet is in the air, you can't move, right? Oh, I didn't even realize I was going to hit. Yeah. So it's sort of risky to actually shoot. Shooting is like it's like putting your shield down. It's like I'm going to try to shoot. You can hit me while I'm trying to shoot. Oh crap.
But at the same time, so let's go down to a synthetic example. This doesn't count for any like skill measure between the two of us. So if we both shoot each other at the same time, let's go up.
Oops. All right, wait, hold on. Let's move. I'm going to move back. All right.
So we both just get hit. Except the Atari had one more button per player. Some games use this. There's a physical switch on the back of the Atari that you can hit, and that changes stuff.
So there's difficulty for both players, and there's also modes for both players, right? So
wait, Scott's bullet disappeared.
your bullet disappeared.
So now, think about the game design. Think about the game design consequences of this. In this very simple game now, by having that mod in place, you have a disadvantage for taking the position to shoot. You're making yourself vulnerable. But at the same time, whoever shoots first, if there's a competition, if you both have a firing solution and you both shoot at the same time or near the same time, whoever shot slightly earlier wins. So you're rewarded by taking that risk. That causes the player to be willing to take the risk as opposed to having the stalemate where everyone hides behind the cactus and never moves. If you want someone to put themselves at risk, you have to give them some sort of reward for that. It's a lot like initiative or right of way. Are any of you fencers? In fencing, if I have right of way, it means that I'm moving forward. I can score a point on Scott, but he can't score one on me. So if we just both hit each other, and I had right of way, I get the point. It's very similar here. It works the exact same way because if there's no right of way, we just run each other and stab each other, and it's just whoever hit first, and that's it. There's a lot more going on.
Now, in some sense, right, the people who made this game, right, maybe they didn't, because there's all these modes and you can select all these different options, it's like, did they really do the game design, right? It's like when you're a game designer, it's like you make decisions. You say, this is how it's going to be. They almost like were lazy in that they're like, you know what, we're not going to say how it's going to be. You decide how it's going to be. So to some extent, you're the game designer figuring out what the right mode is to make this game good, right? The mode where you both get hit is not good.
Yep. Right. Now, all Atari games, Ortho games at least, are like this. They usually have a million different modes just for that reason. Partly because they would often market these games as, yeah, there's 15 games in here.
Yeah, they wouldn't call them
16.
modes. It's not one game with 20 modes to them. To them, it's 20 games. I think the combat cartridge actually says on it, like, oh, this cartridge has like a zillion games, and it's like, no, it has two games. Flying and tanks, that's the two games it has.
Part of the reason they did that is that that's about the only variation they could add is slight, so Nidhogg is a good example. Nidhogg is in the same style as this game. There's a million different mods and options you can apply to the same basic core game, but those options actually drastically change the game. So let's show you where it starts to get a little better. So 2 bars appeared up there. Let's do another mode because that one's not very high contrast. This one's better.
Okay. There's no ammo, which you're trying to talk about. I think all the ammo modes are low contrast.
Oh well, we'll just have to suck it up.
You could have done the blue cactus.
We'll do the blue cactus. Oh, there's no way to go left and right. You just hit the select button, which is a physical
We have to wrap all the way around through all the modes to get back to the, here we go.
I'm hitting a physical switch on the Atari to make that happen. Now there's bars up there. We've got ammo. 6 shots.
That we can't see.
I can see. Okay, here.
A little bit.
All right. Hit me, bro.
All right. Oh, I'm out of ammo now.
Scott's out of ammo.
Uh-oh.
I've got 6 shots.
I'm going to hide behind this cactus now. Oh, shit. It's not an invincible cactus. Oh, shit.
Hey, friend. Now, notice we can't turn around.
It's a one-way pretzel. Ooh, good. Ow.
You got ammo now.
Oh.
Good.
Yeah, you don't reload. There's no reload button. There's only one button on the Atari, and that's shoot. The only way you reload is once the other person uses up all their bullets, and you both reload at the same time. Oh,
you're out of ammo.
You're dead.
So you can see there is still a flaw here.
All right. But yeah, so there's this sort of like game of chicken. It's like if the other person's open for a shot, you kind of want to take it, right? You want to shoot first, especially if hitting them first means their bullet disappears. Them shooting a bullet that disappears when there's limited ammo, that's really, really strong, especially if you get a hit on them. But if you run out of ammo first, you're pretty much at their mercy and have to wait for them to mess up. And if they're careful and patient, every one of those bullets is going to hit you, right?
So
they can wait forever. There's no time.
So every bullet matters. You've got to hold on to that last one. So again now, you're rewarded for taking shots early, but at the same time, you're punished for wasting shots. Every shot matters, and you don't get to reload until the other person gets to reload. So you don't have as much wiggle room, and the game becomes a lot more competitive, but because that cactus is so small, the game still sort of breaks down. It's actually...
Well, it's a destructible cactus, but once it gets destroyed enough, it's sort of like there's no barrier and there's nowhere to hide. So it gets really boring once there's nothing to hide behind.
But even with those flaws, the cactus, you saw a glitch there, that piece of cactus didn't actually disappear. The cactus still serves an interesting purpose, though this game mode is kind of flawed despite that. Because the cactus slowly shrinks as it gets shot, it forces the game to a conclusion. So, I guess I blew my load there. So as the cactus slowly disappears, there's no way, like in the other unlimited mode, for me to hide forever and say, well, I'm just not going to play. The game will eventually push itself toward a conclusion because the cover options disappear over time. That's a very important thing. With games that don't have a time limit, that have a score limit, first 1 to 10 wins, you need something to force the game toward its inevitable conclusion.
Right, like if you look like something like Bomberman, Bomberman has this time limit where it's like, okay, everyone can just hide and sort of just, hide behind a thing and not bomb anyone. But eventually it goes and starts to fill the board in and squish you towards the middle because otherwise you just go forever. So an Outlaw, they don't have a timer, and Atari really couldn't have a timer easily. That would be quite, difficult.
Now, I'm currently designing a sort of remake of this game as a side project I got going with some people. And what I'm going to do there, just give you an insight into sort of game design ideas, that concept is real solid. You got to think about that concept. What I want to do is still have the 6 shots, but I want to have something like a shot clock. If no one has taken a shot in the last 6 seconds, this seems like a good number, I still got to play with it, then the shot clock, a reticle appears over whoever has taken the least number of shots. And if they still don't take a shot, if no one takes a shot for 3 more seconds, they get shot.
Basketball has this problem, and the shot clock seemed to work for them, right?
Yeah. So that goes a little more nuanced. That's the kind of thing you couldn't do with an Atari game, because you couldn't have a timer like that in an Atari game.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a very good timer anyway.
But that means, again, you're rewarding the player who's been more aggressive, but simultaneously the person who's more aggressive also is sort of taking a bigger risk. You need people to stick their neck out, and then maybe they'll get shot in the neck. So let's move a little further, because I want to talk about when this game starts to get really good. So now we got moving obstacles and ammo. Now
you can't just stand in one place and hide forever, right? It's like you have to even if you really wanted to like follow the wagon around, I can't move yet.
So we're just gonna play a game of this to victory. This one counts.
Great.
But
you practiced a lot more. I'm gonna lose.
I want you to think about whether or not, because right now this game, I'll restart it. This doesn't count yet. See how I can only shoot straight at this angle or at that angle? I have no other options for shooting. And see how the board is very small? I want you to think about while you watch us play, if the game would be better or worse if I had more granularity in aiming, and if I had more space to move around, if the cowboys were smaller, if the pixels were smaller, if the board were bigger. Imagine what the game would be like while we play this. And now, this is to determine who's the sheriff at MAGFest.
Oh, you restarted it?
Let's restart it. We're good to go.
Oh, sweet wagon.
We take this game real seriously. Yeah! Now notice, this is also destructible and is slowly destructing. Oh shit, I messed up. I messed up real bad. But because it's moving and it's big, it destructs much slower, so the game doesn't devolve into that stupid state. It's going, oh no, emergent behavior.
Oh, I messed it up. I messed it up again. I can still get over there.
Come at me, bro. You got 1 bullet.
I can get over there. I've done it before. Hold on. There we go.
Wait for me. Wait for me.
Uh-oh. Sorry, you're running out of ammo.
Yeah. Get back there. So think about that. That's a side bonus question. Think about that thing that's happening where the model is pulling you back.
You said this counted, right?
This counts.
I guess I'm the sheriff now.
This is a significant turnabout from PAX. So
never talk yourself up before a game like this, right? And then when you win, it's like, oh.
Damn it.
You say you're going to lose and then you win is much better than if you say you're going to win and then you lose.
Yeah, that's because you've been a Mets fan longer than I have.
That's right.
So, how many of you think the game would be better if you had more granularity in shooting? That's the only change. How many of you think the game would be better if you didn't have that granularity, but the game were much bigger, you had more space to move? Does anyone think the game would be better if you had more granularity and more space to move? You're basically all 100% correct, except for the few people who hesitantly raised their hands.
Well, it would be, right? So it's a question of what you count as better, right? So if you think about what does it mean when you have, this game where you have more, than 3 different ways to aim, and the thing is bigger and things are smaller, right? Is you get towards Counter-Strike, where it's this game is not about dexterity, right? This game is about decisions. Right? It's a mental game. It's like anyone can aim up, down. Anyone can play this. It's not like you need to work on your moving skills or your bunny hopping.
Yeah, APM, there aren't that many megahertz. They can't process that many APM.
Right. So, but, if you make it, as the more granularity you add, the more smaller the pixels are, the higher the resolution, it becomes a dexterity game of like, all right, sure. It's like, it doesn't matter if you decide to shoot. It's, can you shoot? Will you actually be able to hit me if you try to shoot? It's really hard because you have to aim so precisely and so quickly, right? And it becomes a completely different game where a different skill is tested.
This game is all about, at its core, if you look at the design, remember I said fencing? This is so much like fencing. It's all about reading your opponent, give and take, sort of bluffing and telegraphing and moving. You watch us play. We're both kind of going like this the whole time. Like, is he going to move up or down? Does he commit to the shot? And I suddenly commit to the shot because I waited for him to be too close. So you're sort of second-guessing your opponent. And because you have so little space to maneuver, those decisions matter a lot. If I slowly get pushed toward the top of the screen, now I don't have as many maneuverability options. Just like in fencing, if you keep backing up, eventually you lose. You can't step over the back line. Fighting games, it's a real important thing for most modern fighting games that you can't back up that far. If you get backed up into the wall, it's like in boxing when you're on the ropes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and fighting games are like a really good, comparison for this because it's a one-on-one, competition, right, where you're just sort of trying to kill each other. But, right, when a fighting game has really simple controls and doesn't have a lot of special moves and combos, right, it's about the decisions you make. And then when they add all sorts of special moves and combos and things you have to push really fast, sure, it still is about the decisions you make for the pros because the pros can do all the fast button presses and it becomes like Outlaw again, right? Outlaw is just like what the highest level of fighting game competition is like, right? For someone who has no dexterity skills and can't do a Hadouken or a Shoryuken or only can do a Shoryuken half the time.
Now, if you worry that causes the problem where the skill cap is too low, like people can be perfect, 1, I defy any of you to beat either one of us at this game. And 2,
watch out, there's an Outlaw expert in there somewhere.
That happened at PAX 2008. The first PAX we went to, we were there, and I'm walking around, I'm like, man, I saw all these Ataris. I'm like, oh man, I'm probably like the best Kaboom player in the world. Well, I wonder if there's anyone here.
I'm the king of the world. I'm ready to take on the world.
There's literally this dude and his friend, and they're playing Kaboom. And they're super crazy good at it. But the skill cap problem, so you might think if you pull the skill cap down too far, like everyone's going to... Dive kick is the example. Dive kick is real simple. You can hit 2 buttons.
Dive and a kick.
You can hit them both. You can hit one, then the other. Maybe in the other way, you can change the timing up. That's literally all the input you have in the game. And yet, dive kick is a super skill game. Go enter a dive kick tournament and see how well you do if you haven't practiced dive kick. Start worrying about frame timing and dive kick. I worry about frame timing in this game because I can see every frame.
You don't need to go watch any slow-mo YouTube videos.
So this game...
And the hitbox is, well, I see the hitbox.
Yeah. In fact, the collision detection is based on CRT timing and like cathode ray tubes literally drawing the lines and pixels across the screen. So this is a super good game, and if you're going to design a game, if you can't design a game about this level, just make a few toy games like this. It's even better if you haven't played old Atari games, because then you can't cheat. You can't learn from these games too much and just recreate them.
All right, we're going to play not Outlaw now.
Yeah, let's play a different game. So Slot Racers.
All right, so Slot Racers is a bad game, unlike Outlaw.
Now, this is a very high skill cap game. This game, if people decided this was going to be an esport, good God. So the way this game works, I'm the yellow guy. I can hit up to start accelerating.
Notice that noise when you accelerate. All right, I'm at top speed now, I think, right?
So I'm at top speed. We're in the babyest mode.
Now, if you hold left or right, you put out this little feeler on the front of your car. And if you get to a corner, then your feeler will turn you around the corner if it's aiming. And obviously, if you hit a corner like this one, you're going to turn no matter what, right?
Yep. And you can
hit
the button, because remember, there's no X or Y. There's just button.
This hit button, and hit button shoots a bullet.
Slow bullet.
Now, the bullet will follow the path that was set by your feeler when you fired the bullet. So see that bullet I just fired is going to go around in a circle there because that's a left-facing bullet that I fired.
The bullet's coming for you.
Right? Now I'm firing a new bullet. It's a right-facing bullet.
You're fucked now.
I got hit.
So you can see it's very slow, but already you can see this is sort of a game about, it's almost like a fighter jet fight. You're trying to get behind your opponent. You can't, yes!
Uh.
The only problem with this is that it's really, really slow.
What, but didn't you say this was like esport worthy? This doesn't seem esport worthy.
All right, what if we make it fast? I forget how many times I have to do this.
All right, here we go.
All right. There's a high APM going on over here. Gotcha.
The bullets aren't any faster, just the cars. And actually, you shoot backwards. The bullet is like more like a bomb because it comes out your butt because you're going faster than the bullet.
You're real bad at this.
I can't even tell where I am.
No, I'm just hitting buttons. I have no idea. This game, humans cannot play this game.
Someone can. I'm confident.
If I ever find the person who can play this game, I'm getting him on Geek Nights. We're going to talk about it. So, there's a bunch of other cool modes here. Like, check this. Like, you might wonder, what do you do if you're in an empty space? Oh, I just kind of.
You just sort of wheedle around.
And look at this. Now it's just a gun. Just a gun. So let's talk about some of the game design things. Because while this is not the best game, it does some interesting things that will inform other games. So one, get out of the line of Scott's book.
All right, so the first interesting thing it does is they wanted to control the direction of shooting, right, and have the bullet keep going, but you have to use the arrows, the joystick, the one joystick for steering. You can't do Robotron. There isn't a second joystick. Actually, there is a second joystick. You can do two joysticks, one player, two player, but there's two players, you would need four sticks. That's not happening, right? So what they did is they said, well, whichever direction you're steering is the direction the bullet will go, right? You just combine the inputs and use one thing for two things.
Which is often a good thing. In general, when you can simplify and make your input scheme more elegant, that's usually a sign that your game's on the right track.
Right, and even though Atari had support for analog input with the paddle, right? There's no analog input on the joystick. It's just up, down, left, right. But we want to control acceleration, go faster and slower. So it's just tap up, and every time you tap up, you increase your speed, and when you tap down, you decrease your speed.
Go ahead and shoot me. So see how I kind of go crazy and fly away? So early deathmatch games didn't really have the idea of respawning randomly. So spawn camping was when you'd shoot someone and you know where they're going to respawn, and eventually you're standing at their spawn with a rocket launcher, killing them every time they appear until they quit. It was not super obvious that this was a problem that had to be addressed in the early days of designing games, but this designer and a lot of, like about a quarter of the Atari designers figured that out. You'll see this in other games too. In Outlaw, you notice there was a problem. If I shot Scott or he shot me, I sit down right where I got shot. So the game can devolve into the button mash. In this game, if I get hit, it throws me out of the fray. It throws me somewhere slightly randomly off away to give me a chance to recover. It's just like in basketball. If I make a basket, the other team gets the ball now. At least unless you're playing like really bad rules with kids. But.
Yeah. The thing is, in this game, at least, when you get shot, you're sort of the pattern for sending you back is actually kind of predictable, and you can use that to sort of fire your next shot in advance, right? Also notice it doesn't have the thing in Outlaw where your bullet disappears when you get hit, but it does disappear. You can only have one bullet on the screen at a time, right? So you can always shoot a second shot to make your first shot go away.
Now, this is definitely a skill game, and it's a well-designed game, but unfortunately, and if any of you come over here and try to play it, it's not fun.
Yeah,
it's actually really hard.
We were pretty excited about Outlaw. We're just sort of meh.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to say, oh, I'm really good at this game, but no, I'm not good at this game.
No. And it's like, I don't understand the theme either, right? Pretzel Cowboys is kind of fun theme-wise. What is Slot Racers?
It's slot like cars, but they have
slot
guns.
Cars. You mean so slot cars are the things where like the car is on a track with the metal ring and you pull the trigger and the car goes faster and slower. Those don't shoot at each other. And this doesn't look like a slot car track. A slot car track looks like a Grand Prix track with like hills and stuff.
And the other problem is that because we sort of expect things to work a certain way, like joysticks, like turning and moving, all the turning is relative to the direction you're facing now. That is almost always the worst idea if you design a game that has this sort of top-down view. Actually trying to drive somewhere intentionally is super hard because of that. And even worse, like you think, oh, I want to turn right, but if you hold it down a little too long, you'll just keep turning.
Yeah, normally if you want to go to the bottom left, you're going to pull the joystick to the bottom left. It won't get you there. It'll get, right?
So this dumb little game actually, because of its design decisions, requires a surprisingly high APM to play it.
Especially on the fast mode. And forget these weird maps.
Yeah, the weird maps are impossible for humans to play.
Maze Craze?
Maze Craze. So, Maze Craze, real simple game. It's a race. Who gets out of the maze first? I'm the red guy. Oh, no. Yeah, you went the right way. No, I lose.
Winner is me, yeah.
So, Atari doesn't know a lot to go with. This game needs to give you feedback because you're doing very fiddly input into a maze. How does it do that? If I bump into a wall, that's my sound. Chiptune time.
Right? The resolution on this is like the highest resolution Atari 2600 can do. It's hard to see your little dude, especially with the contrast that's on this screen. It's even worse, right? So you're moving around, and it's like, if you hear your noise, you know that you've hit the wall. Am I even going the right way?
No, you're not. No, you're not. Actually, yes, you are. Come on, mess up.
Look at the other screen.
Mess up. Yes!
I got confused at the last second.
So that by itself would be a fun game for about as long as we just played it.
Yeah, it's not fun anymore, really.
Oh, crap.
Oh, it messed up.
No.
No, it didn't. This is why the other reason you need that sound, right? It's like, am I hitting you can't see where the wall is. You need to hear where the wall is.
What's going on now?
I don't even know how you got over there.
Because I'm real smart.
You played this like your whole childhood also.
So when the Atari does that, that's usually whatever the output people do when the AI or the game is calculating something. These are not fast machines.
Yeah,
so
it has to draw. It doesn't. These mazes aren't like pre-written and pre-saved in the memory of the Atari. It doesn't have room for that. It generates these mazes with an algorithm, and to generate a sufficiently complex maze, it's got to do a lot of work. So that time when the screen is moving all around, that's when it's randomizing and generating a new maze.
And you'll notice a lot of Atari games use that exact screen. I don't know if that's intrinsic to the process or not.
I think it's just that they're using, because there's not enough memory to generate random numbers, they're using the video memory space, right, as part of the random number generating algorithm, and that results in seeing a bunch of crap on the screen, and then they start drawing the screen again once they've generated the maze.
I suspect that too, but there's an Atari chess game, and if you put it on the hardest mode, it'll sit there doing it for like 20 minutes between turns.
All right.
So now...
I got killed.
Oh, I also got killed. You lose.
Right. When you get killed, you're stuck on the map, and you can't move. It doesn't actually remove you.
Now, that is an interesting design decision because it makes the game very unfun. Once you're dead, you're out, and you got to wait for the other person to make it. And
it would be better if you weren't on the screen anymore, though, because it's upsetting to like try to move and you can't. But maybe that's a good thing, right?
It should be upsetting that your corpse is laying there because you were crushed by a giant block in a warehouse or whatever.
Is this a warehouse?
Based on the cover art. Well, we both went down the worst dead ends. So another design decision that actually works out for this game is if you start looking at all these mazes we're doing, there's two ways to go about them. Yes. There's two paths generally. They're like, maze algorithms are not a new thing.
Fuck you.
Oh no, oh no, oh no, get over.
You had your chance.
Yes.
I'm
gonna get out before I finish
See,
my
the
point.
bad guys give a use for the rest of the maze, right? If it wasn't for the bad guys, it would just be about finding the shortest path, but it would also be about the dexterity of being able to navigate your guy through that shortest path faster than your opponent. But because of the bad guys, suddenly it adds this extra thing where you have to use the other parts of the maze that you would normally ignore in just a maze mode, right? And to be able to avoid the bad guys.
The maze algorithm, as you might have noticed, always has 2 long paths, and all other paths are very short. There's one long path that goes very close to the end, but doesn't get there, and one long path that goes to the end. That actually works pretty well if you play this game a lot. Because my brother and I, when I was young, we played this game all the time. And the game would start, and you would be holding a direction before your brain even looked at the map.
Right, because if the other person, if you stand there and sit and look and the other person sees it before you and starts moving, you lost, right? It's not only, can you see the path through the maze first, it's you actually have to do it first. So at the beginning, there's only 2 ways to go. You just got to gamble on it and go.
Yep. But in terms of these death guys, they seem like they're a cool idea, but they kind of make the game unfun in that most of the time you just die. But they had an interesting effect on me as a kid, because they're kind of sinister. When there's these death machines that cannot be stopped on the map, and they're just moving around like that, at least as a kid, I was really afraid of those things. Like, they actually scared me.
You're afraid of a big old square.
Because they killed my guy, and his body is just laying there. Now, those kinds of tricks don't necessarily work on adults. Sometimes they do. I have a video essay on Five Nights at Freddy's and the very simple tricks it uses to make you way more scared as an adult than you otherwise should be. But this game had that element. It's something to think about. So there's a bunch of different other modes in here that actually make this pretty interesting. So now you have to collect all 3 things. So now it's like a real race. Now I touched it, and it removed it from my status thing. When Scott touched it, it disappeared from the map. That is very good design.
Oh, they're all near the exit. Oh, you figured it out. See, I figured it out, and then he got in there first.
But see, the fact that they disappear once both people touch them, these little touches like that make both board games and tabletop games much easier for people to learn and play and play the game.
Damn it.
Really simple things.
I saw it first, but I was too slow on the button, right?
Oh, so here's another mode. So this game has a lot of interesting modes. It's interesting how many things you can do with a game that's just a newspaper maze, or the maze you made with graph paper in 4th grade because you were bored. So look at this. I got little feelers.
You need those to navigate the Inviso part.
That's enough of that. Scott,
I was gonna make it.
you win. You win. It's yours. So I use this one mostly as an example. If it's not, it's just a maze. Like, there's a million modes here. My brother and I used to play like this, which is real interesting. But the moral of this one is just that you can do a lot with real little. There is almost nothing to this game, and yet look at how much stuff there is going on. Oh, is
Right.
this the one
Also,
with-
keep in mind, just like Outlaw had the Pretzel Cowboys exactly the right size, Maze Craze makes the maze the exact right resolution, right? A maze that's too simple and doesn't have enough resolution is really boring, and you just see it in like 1 second, like it'll be a straight line to the exit. And a maze with too high resolution is just tedious, like, oh my God, you go for like an hour and it's still a dead end, and you have to go all the way back because it's like, it's really, really small blinds, right? Just by luck, the resolution of this map and what they were able to get is like the perfect for any sort of maze, especially if it's a competitive racing maze, right? It's not so long that you're upset. It's not so easy that it's easy.
So let's talk about one more game. We got a bunch of little games we can talk about too, but I want to talk about Combat, because Combat is one of the most well-known Atari games. It was the Omegathon finale at PAX.
I'm pretty sure it came with an Atari 2600 when you bought it, because I've never seen an Atari 2600 that didn't have a copy of Combat with it.
This was the launch game.
I'm pretty sure.
And then you played Combat before.
Okay, everybody's
yeah,
played
yeah,
Combat.
yeah.
Okay.
So Combat has a lot of problems, actually, and I think Outlaw is a way better game than Combat at being a 2-player competitive ortho game.
So, Combat, unlike slot racers, you steer the bullet after you fire it, and you can actually steer it back and forth a little bit.
But see how I have to input a lot of
But that means that after you fire, you sort of lose control of your car, your tank, right? You're sort of like turning your tank like wiggle, wiggle, wiggle after you shoot. It's kind of weird. Like you might want to keep going right and shoot left, but you can't.
It's sort of, so see, just like Outlaw was very big characters on a small map, this is now small characters on a big map. Fiddly moving matters a lot. If you watch people that kind of play with this game, you'll see them playing the controller, really like trying to control that thing. Because let me shoot a bullet. Like, look, you don't have a lot of granularity. Like if I turn it, like look at how sharp that angle is. So if I want to hit someone, I gotta do all this sort of nonsense.
Right, the resolution of the bullet is really high, and the tanks are still, the right size, I think, for the game, but the bullets are so small, right, to manipulate them with this really crappy stick and get them to hit where you want. Can everyone even see the bullets on this projector, right? Yeah, they're way too small, right, for this kind of game. They should have been the size of the Outlaw bullets.
Now this game, you might wonder, how do we win? It's not just a 10, like it is with Outlaw. It is time. Eventually, the numbers will start blinking. This is more like basketball, where there is a period, there's a time limit. Who's got the highest score at the end?
Right, I said before, it's hard to do a timer on the Atari. There is one. It's just, notice they can't even show it, right? And it's like, you don't know when it's going to end, right? And that's actually kind of bad, right? Because like, if you know the timer's going to end, you're going to change how you play. Does this force you to like count down in your head or use a stopwatch outside the game or something? It's like, you're going to play differently if you know you're down by 1 and there's like 5 seconds left. You can't know there's 5 seconds left. The game is just like, we're going to end soon. All right, we done. It's like soccer. We play, yeah, we're done. Whenever.
So think about Quake Deathmatch, where there's the quad damage that pops out at some point. Now, the quad damage is on a schedule. Pro players just know exactly the millisecond that quad damage is going to appear. But most people wouldn't be able to keep track of that. A lot of people made little apps for little things in the old days that would literally sit there on their desk telling them when the quad damage was about to appear and counting it down.
Yeah, a noob, if they're, if they at least even know that there's like this wow noise, that means the quad damage appeared, would hear the noise, then start heading to the quad damage, right? That's what they like expected people to do. But pros know when the noise, you never hear the noise if this pro's playing because they grab it as soon as it's going.
Coming for Scott here, but, so if I shoot him, watch what happens. See how he throws away like that? And I keep moving. Whatever trajectory I was on, I stay on. Okay, good. He finally glitched out.
So they knew about the problem of spawn camping, right? Just like the slot racers, people knew about the spawn camping, but they did a worse job of the implementation preventing it. They did do something to prevent it, which is the knockback, right? But you can still basically get wailed on until you get to the edge of the screen, and that really kind of sucks.
Because me, if I shoot Scott as red, I'm still on the trajectory I was on before, so I can keep the game state in my mind and be ready to react to wherever Scott ends up. But Scott, if he's hit, spins around and comes out of that randomly. So he's disoriented. Whatever direction he's facing, he can't aim to try to deal with me until he stops spinning. This game punishes you severely if you get shot. Right. And if you watch people play, it tends to be a runaway game. Once someone gets shot a couple times, you get him on the ropes, it's over.
Right, in Outlaw, we had a somewhat similar situation. We could just wail on each other. There was no protection whatsoever, and it became a battle of, the quick draw, right? But here, it's even worse. The person who gets the first shot is probably going to get, like, a whole bunch more hits, right, after that first hit. They should have, if done anything, made the person who got the hit spin around and make the other person get knocked back. That way, it's like, okay, they're in a better position, and the person who shot can't just shoot right again. They might be facing away, and you have to sort of, start the game over again. But they didn't do that.
So this game also has, like every Atari game, has a million modes. It's the exact same mode, just with more terrain, but then some interesting stuff starts happening. Other than glitches. So check this out.
Oh my god, I can't believe you hit that.
I'm real good at this game. No, you know what? I'm real bad at this game. I suck at this game. So let me get right close to you and show something. Hey.
Not gonna let you get that close.
Not gonna coming. Here it comes. So I forget exactly how to do it, but there's a mode. It might be a different. So it's hard with Atari games. You gotta have the manual, but in some of the bouncy modes, you can hit people directly. But in the interesting bouncy modes, a direct hit does not kill the other person. You have to have at least one bounce. That makes this game real interesting. So that's that drive at someone wailing on them while they're disoriented, because you've got to have these banking shots from the distance.
Right. If you're making a banking shot and the other person just got knocked back, you're definitely not going to be able to make another shot immediately that's going to hit them, you know, straight up.
This appears to be that mode. It's also fast. And see the feedback? You see, the bullet went through me, and then it came back and hit me on the rebound. And notice how the sound tells you how long you have to before the bullet expires?
Yeah, see, I shot straight at him. Didn't work.
I'm pretty good at this. Yeah. So see, now the problem we talked about in the other mode is heavily mitigated by disallowing direct shots. Which seems like a strange thing, but that's how, very simple games let you see sometimes very good crap.
Oh, wow, I didn't even see that.
That's what happens when I look at the screen to let you expound on something. A very simple game forces you to see the complicated interrelations between very simple mechanics that you might not see in a larger game where they're obscured by more complex stuff. Like if you're playing Street Fighter, if you're designing Street Fighter, frame timing stuff might really hide like a fiddly detail that matters a lot in high-level play. This mode is really interesting.
So obviously it's in Tank, and when you shoot, you become visible. So shooting becomes a big risk, but obviously if you want to win, you got to shoot, right? So if you shoot, you know where you are, and then you can sort of remember where you are based on, because you know where you're moving to. I don't even know where I was, right?
So notice how you can hear when our tanks are moving, but you can't really tell them apart. I think, like I was looking at the wave files, I think they are supposed to be different, but they end up being unintelligibly the same.
Right, Maze Craze did a much better job of, separating the two sounds so you know who's moving and who's not moving.
But
right?
I thought about crap, I'm in the wrong place. But I thought about this since PAX, because I realized because you can't really differentiate, something interesting happens. You don't necessarily want your opponents to know if you're moving. So you wait for them to start moving over their so you can sort of mask yourself within them. Some very, very complex and high-level interactions happen. Another thing that happens is that my tank starts appearing there.
It's because you're hitting the wall.
If you just suck and start sticking on the wall, one, it warns you like, yo dog, problems, maybe you should deal with this. And two, it punishes you for being so bad at the game by telling your opponent where you are.
I mean, it's also, you wouldn't know if you're hitting the wall, right? It's like, you've shot, you know where you are, and then you start moving, and in your mind, you think you know where you are, and if you get it wrong, you're gonna hit the wall. It's like, you need something to tell you that you're hitting the wall, right? Otherwise, it's gonna be really sad.
The other interesting thing, but I get back to a normal mode to show it to you with the tanks, that it's the only reason the Inviso mode works. Much like an Outlaw, it's not analog. I tap the control, look, I angle like that.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 3 different degrees in between the 90 degrees. So I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And you move at a defined rate.
It's like 18 or 19 directions you can face.
That makes the Inviso tank mode actually work really well, because a good player can know exactly where their tank is just by being very precise with the input. Otherwise, that mode would not work so
Being
well.
precise with the input is much harder with the Atari controller than either of these good controllers.
So, how about all these other modes?
These are actually different games, I would say, right? So the big difference here is that you can't stop moving. All you can do is, which one am I? Oh, pick one or the?
You really can't tell.
I can't tell. Oh, I guess I'm the, I don't know.
You're the green one.
Am I?
Yes.
It doesn't seem like it's working.
There you go. So this one is kind of counterintuitive, but it actually involves interesting behavior. You can't stop. I guess your helicopters or biplanes or...
I think your biplanes like World War I.
I think you're like little cars with tails. You know what? It's slot cars.
Backwards ones.
So you can use the left and right to sort of change the angle of your movement, but you can't, or up and down, sorry, and use left and right to speed up or slow down. So it actually is a pretty good analog of a dogfight, because you're trying to circle around and get behind your opponent to shoot them without them shooting you. So it actually ends up being a pretty good game. And because you're always moving, and you're moving pretty fast, it does the same thing the tank game does. If you get shot, you spin, and the other person keeps moving along their trajectory, but usually you get shot from behind. And if that happens, shoot someone. It's real hard to hit people. That's not right.
Why would I let you?
Here I come. Speed up. This is a very high skill game.
Come on.
I keep going, I'm almost guaranteed to go past my opponent if I shoot them. So if I shoot Scott, I go past it, and then he starts beating my game.
Right.
It's like passing the ball back and forth in basketball.
Right. See, the fact that you can't stop moving on your own prevents that sort of spawn camping problem of the other modes. Right.
And there's a bunch of other stuff in here, but these other modes don't really have anything different to say except I'm a slot car.
I'm 3 little slot cars?
Yeah. I think they were running out of ideas at this point.
They just wanted to get as many modes as they could as a selling point, right? The jet mode is pretty much the same thing also, it's just way faster and awesomer.
So, question for you guys. Who has the advantage in this mode? The big guy or the little guys? What do you think, offhand? Who says little guys? Who says big guy?
Someone
It's the little guys. That's not based on any game. It's just based on me playing this game a lot.
Now think about it, even though the little guys have 3 bullets, it's much more advantageous for them to shoot up and down than it is for them to shoot left and right.
And they can also, by shooting up and down, deny to the big guy a whole chunk of screen real estate. The big guy's real easy to hit.
Yeah, diagonal is also pretty dangerous, especially since the bullets will go off the screen and come onto the other part of
See
the
if I can get it up. I can literally shoot through the gaps between them and not too.
Yeah. I mean, if you hit any one of them, then you're going to hit them all, but if it can go between. I'll try to become vertical.
I'm going to try to just win.
Oh.
Big guy. It's not going to happen. Sure. I have this instinct to just keep hitting buttons even though they can't do anything. You'll see this also in Soul Calibur. Oh, Scott's real bad at this.
Yeah.
See, I totally missed in the middle.
You might, because some people who voted small guys might have thought that like the small guys are actually the same as one thing, just wider. It's like, no, the small guys are 3 smaller things.
So look at this, it's just faster. Now, these clouds actually add a very interesting component. Without the clouds, the game's not nearly as good. Because you can get in here and change your direction. It's sort of like an advanced mode of the bluffing and outlaw, where you sort of deke up, deke down, and then you take a shot. In this, once you go into the cloud, you have enough maneuverability to change to a degree where you're going to come out. So it becomes a little bit of a guessing game. A little bit of a freak out deke.
It's sort of a combination of the Inviso mode with the not Inviso mode, right? It's like you can go into this, space and become Inviso, and then your opponent is guessing for a bit. Instead of, it doesn't just come down to can you aim at me first, right? It's like, there's a little bit of bluffing going on, and then you emerge because you have to keep moving. You can't just stay in the cloud forever, right? So the cloud wouldn't work in the tank mode because it would be like, you roll into the cloud and sit in there, and then what, If your opponent tries to shoot into the cloud, it's like you can just sort of sit in there and dodge, and they don't know where you are in it, right? At least they know where you aren't. And then eventually if they try to come into the cloud after you, it's like, nope, I'm going to start shooting.
So this one is a little more interesting, because now it's like 1 little guy versus 3 little guys. So which one do you think has the advantage? Think about it. We'll try to play a match of this. And think about who has the advantage here. You get me?
I shot you already. You reset it. You reset the score.
Because I wasn't playing yet. Also, you can do pretty well at a kind of like MAGFest, just having a laptop and a projector and playing Atari games. Scott, who do you think has the advantage?
I think this is actually a pretty even game, because while I have 3 shots, right, you have 3 different things you can hit with your 1 shot, and I only have to hit this one thing, and they're all the same size, right? So even though there might be a slight advantage if like you figured it out or checked the skills, also my 3 guys have to move in unison, so it's really kind of
annoying. Yeah, because going to let you control them all independently. Those 3 guys are 1 sprite.
But you can still shoot in between them, right?
Yes.
So my hitbox isn't really the full width. But.
Well, I mean, like people think of Mario as the sprite. Like, and even in the NES, in Mario 1, Mario's a whole bunch of sprites.
I mean, if you're playing Counter-Strike, would you rather have a gun that can shoot, at 3 spots perfectly and get like headshots of 3 guys at once, or would you rather have a much smaller hitbox that's 1/3 the size of someone else?
Do you want to play as Bond or Oddjob?
Right.
But yes, as far as we can tell, this mode is pretty much equal. Like, it's not symmetric, but it's definitely fair. In the other mode, because the orange guy is so much bigger, and because that's a bigger target, it's just worse to be the big guy. we're pretty much running out of time. So I guess we can just move on to our conclusion, or we can talk a little bit about why.
No, don't play E.T. It's annoying. I can't hear this game.
So, how many of you know about this game?
Everyone
It's so
knows about
bad.
this stupid game. Why are you asking?
Have you played it? All right.
Oh, okay. I thought at MAGFest like everyone would have played it. Okay, you just know it's infamous. That's interesting.
So, the panel that we did that's on this, I recommend it because I think you might enjoy it. If at least you enjoyed this at all, it's called Bad Games. We did it at, I think, PAX South.
Right, it's like the most famous bad game, except for maybe like Superman 64 and stuff like that, right?
So the game is complicated. I'm going to summarize that lecture we gave. But all Atari games are complicated. They came with big rule books that told you everything. The only thing that's bad about this game is that you don't expect E.T.'s head touching the very top of this pit to make you fall into it. That's literally the only thing that is particularly bad about this game. Because now, if I try to come out of the top of the pit, I fall right back in. And thus, most people spend the entire game doing that, and then they give up. I don't know why the phone pieces are in the pits.
The FBI guy threw him down the pit.
Yeah. Woo!
Whew.
But there is a mod someone made. This person tried to take an Atari, the Atari code for this game, and fix it. And he did it. He basically made this game playable and pretty amazing by Atari standards.
Right.
And there's an article as to how he did it. And he had to steal pixels and steal frames and steal code from other characters.
Because E.T. uses the full memory of the 2600 cartridge, right? It uses the full capabilities of the Atari. So
Like that guy, he made that guy thinner and basically stole his pixels to use to
right.
do something clever.
He made that guy's sprite take up less memory, and now he's freed up some memory to do something else better somewhere else in the game.
And they also did a clever trick where he basically made the top of E.T.'s head not collide with objects. Only the bottom would collide. And then it actually works like a modern game, where like, if you play Legend of Zelda, Link's head kind of overlaps with those blocks a little bit, so you get this sense of 3D. That actually fixes the game, and the game's not only playable, it's one of the best Atari games ever made.
Right. The thing with this game, the reason it has such a reputation for being bad is because you just try to play it, and you don't. Even if you read the rule book, it's a little hard. But most people play this without reading the rule book, and they don't know what the hell to do, and it's confusing, and the falling in the pits. And when you combine those two things, it's just a really frustrating experience. If you study the game and figure out actually like what that arrow means at the top, and like what that dot is, and like what you're supposed to do, it's actually a pretty okay Atari game. It's better than a lot of other ones out there. But it definitely doesn't live up to the hype that it got, right? It was like the most hotly anticipated game ever.
So we're pretty much out of time, so I hope this was enjoyable. We have no more panels today, so go forth
thank God.
and play games. I think Scott's on the TCG, LCG, CCG panel tomorrow, and I'm on overly complicated board games. If you want to see that other lecture and you haven't already grabbed one of these, by all means, this QR code goes straight to our YouTube channel that has all those videos of all those lectures we keep referencing. And enjoy MAGFest. I do the roar, but I don't want to lose my voice.
No, we're good.